So hi, this is Sandipan. I work as the Director of Engineering for Rakuten and Global Data Office. So my main job is to make sure the next generation data platform, which is the global enterprise repository for Rakuten, moves from the legacy platform to the new platforms. So I will be covering a couple of topics today. So mostly about the company itself, Rakuten, and how the journey of our enterprise shareable data platform, analytics platform is, and the journey about Alluxio. So as I said, I'll be basically covering on the modernizing the global shared data analytics platform and our Alluxio journey. So this platform is called as SuperDB. It's open in the even in quarterly results. If you have that is in public. So we do say that this is something which we have done. So we'll quickly go through the topics. So brief about the company and the journey of ours and journey with Alluxio. So what is Rakuten? Rakuten is a global internet company. We are the largest e-commerce company in Japan, world's first virtualized cloud-native mobile network. We are also #1 in the credit card business in Japan. We do business in form of an ecosystem. So we have about 70 plus different services. You can split it out in 3 different verticals. So like internet services, which covers the marketplace, the travel, the advertising, and the cashback in US, which is called the Ebates primarily, and it's called Rakuten Rewards now. On financial services, we have a Rakuten Bank, Rakuten Card, securities, the insurance. And on the right side of it is called the communications platform, which we covered like mobile, Rakuten TV, and streaming services. We also are very much involved in games and sports, especially. So we are an official sponsor for FC Barcelona. We're officially partners with them. We are also a main official partner for Golden State Warriors in the US. We have something called the Rakuten Open, which is an ATP tour in lawn tennis. We have an overall global membership of about 1.4 billion. So this is all about Rakuten. So if you want to know more about it, you can obviously go to the YouTube and find out about our quarterly results and where it goes into details of the company. So what is SuperDB? And it's a centralized data platform for Rakuten ecosystem. So as I say, like Rakuten's business is based on the ecosystem. So we touch with different types of people, right from marketplace to travels to fintech information, fintech services like credit cards, bank, insurance, then obviously the communication side of it, like mobile networks. And obviously, other one is using similar to, I don't know how many people are using in the US, but Rakuten Viber. So it's also a huge communication platform for us. So out of the 70 services, what we have is 43 services of the whole 70 plus services are stored in SuperDB. When I say 43, it means 43 services are tied up together with a single ID. So that's the power for us, a single ID to connect all the members across different services wherever they touch. It has about 700 plus terabytes of normalized data sets. So these are usable data that's cleaned and tied up with an ID. We store more than petabyte their data sets in the repository. We have an active user base of 6,500 on a weekly basis, and we see 40 plus services actively using our system on a weekly, on a daily basis. So our journey, we started in 2007 as a traditional warehouse, and in 2012, 13, we moved into the big data stack, having Hadoop mostly on-premise, and then when gradually to 2018, we had this both on Rakuten One Cloud plus our public cloud. We were primarily into using Mesos over a period of time, but then from 2019, we started moving on everything to Kubernetes. So everything is mostly whatever we can containerize. The systems we've been containerized and runs on Kubernetes. And that's also the year we started with Alluxio. Started looking at Alluxio for a Presto cluster to provide a cache for the Presto running on GCP. That was the first work we started with Alluxio. And today, this year, we have Alluxio in production in some of the use cases we've been talking about. And we are also doing some of the POCs with Alluxio as I speak to you. So what is our Rakuten enterprise repository landscape, the overall data landscape? So we do have data sets that is coming from upstream directly to this enterprise repository, but we also have various business warehouses because Rakuten has grown as acquiring different companies. So they always had their own warehouse or a data lake. So it's not like one stream or upstream is only pumping the data sets into our enterprise repository, but we also have connects to all these different data warehouses or data lakes, if you say, in different infrastructure. We do have companies who has infrastructure on AWS, running on Azure, running on GCP, and obviously on our Rakuten One Cloud, which is on-prem, our Rakuten own private cloud. And that all comes in together at one place, and then it gets replicated. And some parts of which are allowed to be in the cloud, which is provided in the cloud, and some part, mostly our single version of truth remains on-prem. Then I create the data projections, and those data projections are accessed through a common query layer. With a granular access control, we have RBAC, and the structure way we have done the security part is having that security layer, whether you go in public cloud or on-prem, it acts the same way. And so that the data science and the analysts can actually not think much about those parts. They can go through the query engine and they can connect to any of the data sources across this landscape. So some of the personas we wanted to look at is because we believe that the security has to be a zero trust security. So we wanted to understand the personas who are using it because the requirements are different. And every users have different needs. So we kind of brought it down. And what are my different personas utilizing my system and who are using it on a daily basis? So we brought it down into 7 different categories and trying to understand what they do. Other the system challenges that we had was system scalability. It was not like we were not able to scale out our system and the requirements because we have like in US you have Black Friday and sales events. So we do have that in Japan a lot. So it was not that the system was not scalable, but what we faced for the problem was to have this elastic compute for experiments. Because as the company grew, we saw that a lot of experiments were increasing, and we were trying to understand how to have that compute elasticity. Then the data availability was a kind of an issue because with more services coming into the system, and some of them were running on legacy code. So we wanted to understand how to address this data availability issues to make sure that whenever the data is generated, we make it sure it's available for analytics or your data science. The data freshness, obviously, because we have so distributed data centers across. So obviously they were going on back and forth copy of the data sets, and which basically delayed the data sets being available for further processing. And then analytics agility, as you say, is like till the data set comes in the enterprise repository, we always had an issue like people cannot do an analysis or they cannot do a data science work or cannot build their models. So we wanted to have a way to connect to all the systems before the data movements takes place from the upstream to our enterprise repository. So to summarize that, on the approach we took was from a systems perspective, we went from a pure private cloud to a public cloud and a private cloud architecture. It's in a hybrid, and every part wherever we wanted to make availability is make it cloud native. We had features like data syncs so that we don't have to copy the data sets across, so that whenever the data set lands in one of the load zones, it gets automatically replicated to other clusters. And obviously, the last but not least is a query layer, which we introduced with Presto. We have been working with Presto, but we wanted also the Presto to connect to all the data sources, what we had across the data landscape. So one of the challenges, as I said before, was copying the data across. So we have the legacy system, and we have a lot of jobs, which is going in from the upstream directly into the warehouse, the legacy warehouse. And then we have the SGFS. I call it as a legacy SFS basically because it's an older version of it. We have a couple of new versions for it. So there was always a work like copying the data set from Teradata to SDFS and then to a newer SDFS cluster, which was across different data centers. And the complexity increased when we introduced the public cloud into it. So as you can see, it was just like you're trying to copy data sets, move back and forth, and that creates a lot of not only operational overhead, but it also kind of makes the data not fresh. Becomes a stale because there is always a delay because there is time that takes from copying one data set from one system to another system. And that's where we started with Alluxio to work with, try and see if Alluxio can work as a data sync. So what we did was have that in our pipeline so that whenever it lands to one of these clusters, it gets replicated through understore replication to other clusters. And also we looked at Alluxio from a cache layer perspective from our Presto cluster. So initially we started using Presto only for our getting the data sets from our SDFS. So that was a good case for us to start with Alluxio. So we had this Alluxio with Presto to connect to all this SDFS clusters across different data centers and also on the public cloud. Then this year we found out we wanted to reach out, as I said before, to have an agility for analysis. We wanted to reach out to connect to different data sources, and we needed parallel loads from these data sources. So we moved from, especially on the on-premise side, we moved from Alluxio Presto combination to a Starburst. So Starburst basically is a partner to Alluxio as well, and they're very good partners to us. So we work with them to make sure that we can connect to different data sources and provide that analytics agility across different data sources. So today we are in production with that, especially on the on-prem side. But on the public cloud, it still remains like Presto with Alluxio works on GCS and Azure. The other POC we are presently doing, as I'm speaking with you, is the distributed cache for our compute cluster. So the team is working on trying and see if Alluxio is a good fit for our Kubernetes, basically a processing part, to work as a distributed cluster, distributed cache, and to make sure that if we can use a bare metal because we have on Rakuten One Cloud, we have GPUs and also bare metal. The storage layer is on not only SDFS, but we also have object stores there. So we wanted to see if Alluxio can fill that in between as a cache layer whenever our Spark compute is working and trying to do the transformations or aggregations over a period of time. And the next step would be obviously trying to understand how better we can do with the machine learning part of it for the data science. So to sum it up, our journey with Alluxio has been, especially from 2019, when we started with Presto plus Alluxio on our public cloud with GCP, and now it is still in production. We expanded that to Azure. We are trying and just seeing if we can productionalize that in Azure. The other part we did was the data sync, as I say, like copying the data across, but rather than having it synced across the different data centers and different clusters as well. So that is also in production today. And obviously, we, as I said, like try and see if we can have the distributed cache for our ML and data pipeline jobs. So that's the POC that's going on. And if we are successful, we hope that early next year we should be in production. We hit the production. To sum it up, this is how it looks like. So from the pipeline part to the compute part and from the consumption area. So kind of a data orchestration layer for us. So we have done the syncing part. So that's complete and is in production. We are presently working on the distributed cache in the middle part of, if you see it, to create this Mars or virtual data projections or transformations. And on the right side, we have already a piece which is running in cloud with Presto. So that's about it from my side. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you.